welcome to another Tactics Tuesday video. Today we're talking about mark roundings. So, first question again, why are they so important? And that is because, just as the previous critical decisions we've gone through, they set you up for the next section of the race. So for the upwind mark, it's gonna set you up, it's gonna be a big deciding factor of what opportunities you have on the downwind. As for the downwind mark, it's not as critical for what you can do on the next leg, but it's just a point where you can gain a lot if you do them well. And let's look at the upwind marks first. Now the first big question is, where do you want to go on the downwind? This is something you need to know before you reach the upwind mark. At the latest, at some 50 meters before the mark, someone in the crew needs to ask, where do we go on the downwind? And then someone needs to have the answer. Maybe any one of you, but someone needs to have a clear plan where you want to go on the downwind. Because to be able to go to the side that you want, to the right or the left of the course on the downwind, you need to decide that before, because you need to position yourself properly before the upwind mark. Now, for example, if you look at this red boat here, they're gonna have a slightly difficult time getting here to the left side of the course, because they're probably gonna be in bad air from the blue boat, maybe from the green boat as well. Now again, this blue boat has no way of going to the right side of the course, because they cannot jibe here. They will be blocked by this red boat. Alright, so those two don't have much decisions. This green boat, however, they've got their decisions still. They can decide which side they want to go to. So if we take a look at the position that we get next, we're gonna have something of a position like this. The blue boat is forced to go here because it's blocked by the red boat, and the red boat, well, it could do a jibe and go here, but if it decides to go here, they're just gonna be in bad air. They're gonna have the green boat here, the blue boat here blocking them, but the green boat, it's got decisions. It can go here, try to cover these, gain against them, or they can jibe and go here, or they can just take a low angle and go on the inside, maybe gain some mark rounding space when they get to the bottom mark. Alright, so this is then the next step. We could end up in some of these positions with these boats here. The green can have gone here, green can be here, green could also have jibed, red could have jibed, but it all starts from the upwind mark. You need to set yourself up like I said. Alright. So just a quick recap. If you want to go to the left, you need to be on top. You need to not have anyone on your top, on your windward side. If you want to jibe, you need to be closest to the mark. You cannot have someone in between you and the mark. You're not going to be able to jibe. Not going to be able to go to the right side on the downwind. Alright. But there are a few other reasons to know, or there are some factors to take into account when deciding where you want to go on the downwind. So first one, quite like natural thing to think about is, where do you have more wind on the course? So if you have more wind on the right, you want to go to the right, quite simple. Then you know how to position yourself before the upwind mark. Second thing to take into account is the wind direction. So let's imagine this red boat first. Ignore the blue one for a while. Here we see it's going on a really high angle, which means the wind must be shifted a little bit to the right. Alright? And generally, if you have the wind shifted to the right, you want to jibe quite quickly after the upwind mark. And in the other case, you have a header before coming to the mark, so you have the wind shifted to the left. Now we're talking fleet racing terms here during this lecture series. Obviously, if you're doing match racing, you're gonna be rounding the mark the other way, but the tactics are also gonna be way different because you have just one boat to think about. while in fleet racing you have the whole fleet you have to position yourself against. So a header, so wind shifted to the left before the mark, keep going. A lift, so the wind shifted to the right before the upwind mark, do a jibe quite quickly. That will lead you more towards the downwind mark, right? And third thing to think about is the room to the bottom mark. If you have a gate down below so you can choose which mark you round, then this is not that important. But if we have just one mark, then we need to think about the mark rounding space, or the room to mark. So the room to mark rule is, once we get to the 3 boat length circle here, if there is overlap like this, so if the boat that is behind, or well, the boat that is on the inside of the mark between the other boat and the mark, if they have overlap, so if their bow or complete boat is in front of the extension of the stern of the other boat, they have room to the mark. So this blue boat in this case has to give this red boat enough room to be able to round the mark. Right? So that's something to take into account. Usually if you go to the right side of the course, you're gonna be the one getting the space, the room to the mark. If you go far to the left, there's the risk that you're gonna have to give room to a lot of boats. Alright, and we'll take a little bit more, another look at the mark rounding, the room to mark rule. So the overlap in this case, we see that the red boat is very far behind. It is nowhere near the 3 boat length circle, but it's still overlapped because this blue boat is coming in at a tight angle, and we see that the extension from its stern goes like this, and the red boat is in front of that extension, so it has overlap. Alright, so again, this red boat has room to mark. This blue boat has to give it enough space to round the mark. Now if this blue boat can round the mark before this red boat reaches it, and the red boat does not have to avoid this blue boat, then it's all fine. But if this comes at some kind of super speed, reaches here at the same time as the blue boat, then the blue boat needs to give this enough room. Alright. And at the downwind mark, the room to mark rule, it does not matter if you come into the mark on port or starboard, you will have room as this boat. Alright. At the upwind mark, you cannot come in at port and then tack around the mark. You have to come in at starboard, alright? Then let's talk about the downwind mark roundings. What do we need to think about there? Yeah, like I talked, we need to think about the mark rounding space. We want to be able to round close to the mark, so usually leave more space to the mark when approaching it downwind, so that you can then do a long rounding here and come tightly around the mark. Because if you come really close to the mark here and then round, you're gonna end up quite far from the mark. So instead, leave room to the mark first and then tightly around the mark. Alright. But it's again, you need to think about where you want to go on the next upwind, and then you can just tack around the mark quite quickly, or you can continue. You need to look again at the pressure and the wind direction. We usually want to sail the long tack first, so the one that is leading us more towards the upwind mark and the downwind mark on the downwind. Alright, these are quite simple. We've gone through them before. And yeah, one more thing. Actually, no, we'll take it in the next lecture. Alright, so next time we'll talk about bad air and keeping someone behind you. So we're gonna get into the mark roundings a little bit more there, because there are some special tactics that you can use to keep someone behind you after the downwind mark. So yeah, more about that next time. Thank you.